Big news from Kind Goods. Kind Goods Afton is officially open, giving St. Louis another convenient way to experience Kind Goods. Whether you're looking for flower, vapes, edibles, concentrates, or pre-rolls, you'll find a great selection and something for everyone. Not sure where to start? The friendly, knowledgeable bud tenders at Kind Goods can help you find what's right for you. It's the same great experience you've come to expect from Kind Goods, now in Afton, locally owned and operated. Kind Goods is proud to be part of the St. Louis community. 7 locations, 1 Kind Goods.
Are you ready to find your fire? New Daybreak Fortifiers infused pre-rolls are here. Made with whole flower, never shake, Fortifiers take the classic pre-roll to the next level. With 2 options to choose from, you can go with high terpenes for bold flavor or high potency for a stronger kick. Because sometimes you want more than a standard pre-roll. Find your fire with Daybreak Fortifiers. Available now at Kind Goods. Welcome back to Greenway Audio Magazine. I am here today with Kansas City Cannabis Company CEO Forest Palmer. The man, the myth, the mustache. So you and I have been talking for, the better part of 6 years, 7 years. And you have a history in cannabis, and I think you've explored that in other places. So we'll tell people that they can check the Greenway archives, they can check your podcast appearances and stuff like that to learn a little bit more about some of your history and what got you into cannabis. But today I'd really like to talk about some of your accomplishments and some of KCC's accomplishments. And just the culture that you've fostered and helped to create there, because you guys have been recognized time and time and time and time again for being one of the best places in the cannabis industry to work. And I think that says a lot both about the company culture, obviously, but as the CEO and as someone who was COO before and in operations before that, I think that says volumes about you and what you've helped to foster and create. So if you don't mind, let's just kind of start at the top and work our way down. What have you learned in operations that sets the tone for how you lead and how your company moves today?
Yeah, not to sound too cliche or anything, but at the end of the day, we're leading people, and if you're treating people like people, they're going to feel that more so than if you're treating them like numbers. The big thing that we did early on is we attached individual employee success and development to company company success and development, which goes a long way. Anytime we do our year-end surveys and our interior surveys, they're all anonymous and we're looking for feedback. And that's the big thing that people lean into. Plus, we employ a lot of millennials and Gen Xers, which if you pay attention to generational or work psychology at all, the things they're looking for are massively different than the things that the older millennials and then the boomers and I think I said Gen Xers before, I meant Gen Zers. But they're looking for different stuff. They're looking to be developed. They're looking to have a strong work-life balance. Essentially, every decision that we make when it comes to our employees, we make sure that we're making a people-forward decision rather than a business-forward decision. I mean, we're blessed to be in cannabis. It's a great industry. It's very fun to be in. I think it can be exploitive of people, but it's kind of a business decision if you want to go that direction or not. And thankfully, we weren't beholden to decision makers that were above people working in the business. So we got to be active with the people, interact with them, know what they needed out of life and out of work, and really deliver that. Because at the end of the day, dude, I've been in retail my whole life. If I'm having a bad day or if this job sucks for me, the customer's going to feel it. So it's, it feels like a culture first thing because it absolutely is, but you can also spin it to be a good thing for the business too. And I think that's where KCC really hit that perfect stride, is that we got to make good decisions for the people and the business at the same time. That's the secret sauce, really. So lead the people, don't lead the business.
It seems like, and obviously you guys have had tremendous success with exactly that. It seems like you guys are, obviously you have the Kansas City name, but it
Mhm.
seems like part of the success of the company and the success of the people is that you seem very rooted in the communities that you're in, and that the people are rooted in the communities that you're in. um, I don't know that we've ever talked about it. Do you guys have thoughts of expansion beyond where you are? And if so, how do you replicate that experience in a new market or in a new area?
Sure. So, anytime we enter, so we've relocated some of our stores, so we've had to do a little bit of entering new markets, even though they were nearby. Um, but our whole marketing strategy, the operation or the strategy, we used to call it "Win at Home," because it really encompasses what we do. There's no reason for us to try to attract the customers that are 25 miles away if we can't impress and win over the customers that are right down the street and our neighbors. Plus, it's a big help that our stores are embedded in the communities that we grew up in and that we were a part of. So, like, I'm from Odessa, which is only 10 miles from our Blue Springs dispensary. Dan is from Grain Valley, which is even closer. Corey's from Grain Valley. Lee's from Kansas City. I mean, our entire team is from here. We literally, our furthest out of state investor was a person from Kansas City, Kansas, which we can get into that rivalry another time. But yeah, it definitely helps being from the place that you're working. And then on top of that, with the focus of winning at home, all of our sponsorships are local. All of our events are local. We hope local bands. Anytime an employee in our company has a side hustle that they're doing, cool. We employ that business rather than go into someone else that isn't attached to us. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's a big focus on being uh, synergistic with everybody in the company and with everything they're trying to do. And that extends to the community, which then extends to the greater community, which then extends to the cannabis consumer, because honestly, they want genuineness. And that's what we are. And people can feel that. And anytime we have even close to a negative interaction, our goal is to make sure that it's not that, that's positive. So and that extends all the way out. So yeah, we win at home hardcore. That's our whole philosophy when it comes to marketing is winning at home.
I love the I love that sentiment. I also love that you guys are, um, you know, St. Louis Bread Company is now Panera, but anybody
Yep.
that's from St. Louis will not call it Panera. It's St. Louis Bread
Yep.
Company, or just Bread Company. Um,
hmm
I I love that you guys are bringing your staff, like your people are rooted in the communities. You guys are. It seems like you do a lot of upward mobility within the company.
Oh yeah.
Rewarding the people that have been there, and building from within. And it also seems like you guys find ways to use people in the way in their skill sets and capitalize on the things that make them dynamic or happy. Like
hmm
you talked about, if they have a side hustle or whatever, it seems like you guys also really play into what someone's strengths are. I've
Absolutely.
interacted with some people at KCC, and they may not be the most. There's been a few interactions where the person may not be the most dynamic personality, but oh my gosh, do they have a depth and breadth of knowledge whenever you start talking to them about weed. And then you have
Oh
other
yeah.
people that are just light and super vibey, and they really like project their personality into the interactions with people, and they're so disarming. You walk through the door and you're instantly like, okay, I feel vibey, I feel comfortable. And
hmm
it seems like you guys are creating that hometown feel of like your local bar, your local favorite restaurant or diner or whatever, but you guys are doing it time and time again with cannabis stores.
Absolutely. Uh, the first thought that comes to mind is there's an author named Peter Drucker. He was famous in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I believe he's passed already, but he has a book called Focus on Strength. And early on, even in the application process, we kind of started leaning into that concept. And then on top of that, for why people can be so vibrant in themselves with us is A, we want you to be genuine. B, we practice blameless problem solving. So if someone does mess up something, cool. I made a $30,000 mistake back in medical, and KCC could have set the culture by being really hard on me and been really down on me. But instead, we set the culture of, okay, now we have a problem that we need to solve, and we solved it. And then that's just kind of expanded from there. As for uh, as for leaning into strengths, to get back to that, uh, one thing that we've always done is promote from within. So, like, we've never hired a manager or a director or a C-level person from outside. Literally every single person in our headquarters staff, there's 17 of us now, they either started as a bud tender or they helped write applications. And honestly, that's paid dividends 1,000 times over, because the loyalty and respect that goes every direction from that type of stance. I mean, it's not like we pay more than True Leave or more than some of these huge things, but we focus on providing a life work balance that is in favor of the employee. We focus on providing skill sets and development that they can take outside of KCC. Like, so for instance, we have a 6% turnover rate. People don't leave KCC. And most of the time when they leave, it's they're either moving states so they can't keep the job, or there's a few occasions where they've had to be fired. But people will get offered jobs, which is awesome. We tell them to go take the interview. If you get a better opportunity that we can't offer here because the person above you is not leaving, it's a celebration. It's a good thing. In fact, we have people at Local, we have people at Vibe, we have people all over the place now. And when they got those elevated positions, it was a celebration. It was considered a victory for KCC. That mindset alone really drives forward the loyalty that our teams have, and then the representation that they give of our business outside of KCC's walls. So, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, operations could fall apart, and our goal is to protect the culture. We talk about it all the time. There is no KCC without the culture that's been set. So, yeah, no, dude, culture, I could geek out about culture. In fact, if we went the whole hour about culture, I think I'm hesitant to show off about KCC's culture because it feels like talking to someone and trying to, I guess, play up your story, your situation. But at the end of the day, it is what A, it's what we do right, and B, I think it's led to us having the best dispensary team in the, I mean, for sure the state, if not the country. I think we solve problems. We take care of our people. We're customer first. We don't get bad reviews because if someone has a problem, we fix it, even if it's at a detriment to us, because that's how a relationship is supposed to work. Um, so yeah, man, I think we hit an early home run, and we realized early that the steps we were taking were the right steps for KCC, and it's just kept paying off over and over again. Some of our superstars, dude, I could shout out just about anybody on our team, and it'd be a worthwhile shout out. But some of our superstars are quite literally stepping into positions that they shouldn't even really have to find themselves in. But it's such a what benefits me, benefits you, benefits everyone type of situation that it's a I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to get to the root of it, but if you've ever experienced a good employer, you really know when it's a good one.
Well, and one of the things that I find most, not necessarily compelling, but kind of representative of exactly what you're talking about is when you do have people go to other companies, and they come from KCC, they're building new relationships there. They're enhancing your relationship because they they kind of leave with the sentiment that, I didn't necessarily want to leave, but as you said, there was an upward trajectory, and so they want to repay that. They want to,
Mhm.
work with you guys. They want to continue their relationship with you. And oftentimes that means either building or enhancing existing relationships with other people in the cannabis space. And it seems like we've seen that multiple times, going from KCC to other companies. That's something that I think is somewhat unique in the cannabis industry as well. A lot of times, if people are leaving one company to go to another, they may not be burning the bridges on the way out, but they're definitely like, you know, forward mindset, no, not looking back. And it seems like there's a lot of overlap between your people and the relationships that they continue to build, and how they're representing the company they came from.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear very often about somebody saying, I work at this company, but I came from here.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the way people talk about their alumni with a college or a university. They're like,
One
we
hundred percent.
I came from KCC, like they've got the frat shirt on and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah,
uh, doing
dude.
the
It's
step
it's a
dance.
it's really awesome to see. But I mean, you're absolutely right. One time we got referred to about 2 years ago. Someone outside of our company referred to us as a manager factory, and dude, that was such a cool compliment to get because we know we do the soft stuff and the culture stuff correct. So to then to be recognized operationally by another company was really cool to see. So we renamed our development program the Manager Factory. Essentially, at the end of the day, when you enter KCC and you become a bud tender day one, not only are we ingraining the culture in you, well, first of all, through the interview process, we made sure you had the soft skills and the people skills and the willingness to buy into a team that does the right stuff. Operations, we could teach operations, dude. We're retail experts at this point. We're compliance experts at this point. What we really need to hone in on is, are they a match for our culture? So after all that process, and they've already been noticed as a match for our culture, we start developing day one as a bud tender. It's not like we pick out the special people and we only develop them. We develop everyone. We give everyone an opportunity. Every single bud tender in our store will go from level one bud tender to level three bud tender in their first 9 to 12 months, which comes with a raise at every level, comes with increased responsibilities, comes with increased skill sets. And then once they move into the a leader position, whether it's third key, fulfillment lead, lit bud tender, whatever it is, that development continues. And essentially, that day one bud tender through GM is now what we call the manager factory. And so, yeah, no, we have people that leave here, they know they still have allies here. And I think that's the biggest point of why they can still endorse us, because they know we're still on their side, even though they're not on our team anymore.
When you talk about the manager factory, and that seems to be the culture of how you're building the next generation of KCC, right?
Yep.
But what's the culture behind your partnerships and your, because as we just said, some of that is a result of the manager factory. How are
Mm-hmm.
you picking your partners? Because it seems like you guys have the ability to, maybe I see it differently from the outside, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. It seems like you guys are a little more selective in what products you present, who you partner with as far as community activations and brand partnerships and things like that than some other dispensaries in the state. Some people want to have every product from every company in the entire state. Some people don't have the ability to do that, and there's a few companies that only fuck with certain companies because of brand or vertical relationships or what have you. You guys
Sure.
seem to have balanced it in a way where people want to work with you, brands want to be on your shelves, obviously, but instead of just going with what's the most popular, what is the biggest brand name in the space, it seems like you guys are selective to some extent about not just what the consumer wants, but about who you want to be tied to.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's two different ways to answer that question. When purchasing, we're either trying to fill product, partner, price, or niche. So that way, we're hitting all of the category and price types that people are looking for. The other side of it is, at the end of the day, dude, I would ask you the question, but I like asking the question of what's a good partner? And realistically, a good partner is someone that balances the benefit both directions. So that's really what we focus on. So, like for instance, I could carry, I could throw out a number. I could carry 60 vendors if I wanted, and I could be an okay partner to all of them. Or I can carry 25 and be a great partner to each one of them. This does two things. A, again, it becomes synergistic, just how we look at as our teammates and their relationship with KCC. We look at that. We look at partnerships the same way. us and our relationship with our partners. If I can help you get a maximum benefit, well, then it kind of also business wise incentivizes you to give me maximum benefit as well. So at the end of the day, a good partnership is a benefit balancing act, and I think we've struck gold with that. To give a little bit more of a caveat, we haven't had to do this too often, but if someone does clash with our culture, like there's a partner or a vendor that does clash with our culture, or they don't line up with that, we're not going to out them by any means. We're just not going to fuck with them, because at the end of the day, if we're about culture interior but not exterior, well, then we're not actually about culture. Um, and then as for our social activations and our sponsorships and our events and that type of stuff, it's going to be one of three things really. It's either going to be hyper local, which benefits our community. It's going to be someone that's within our camp already, so we're benefiting them while they benefit us, or it's going to be someone who is, to be honest, who is about this cannabis industry and this cannabis lifestyle before it took off. I can't tell you how many people absolutely deserved licenses during the application phase that didn't get them. But we could get into applications and all that separately, but they still attach themselves to the cannabis industry because they're about what we're about. So interacting with those people and doing events and sponsorships with them not only enhances the brand, but it also keeps the cannabis culture alive that we liked before legalization. I mean, shit, dude, you're probably the same way. I bought Black Market for the first 2 years that cannabis was legal here just because I liked that interaction more than I liked the dispensary interaction. So, like, being able to connect with that part of the culture and that part of the industry, which is still a huge part of the industry, is very important to KCC. Especially, dude, we love Kansas City. We slapped the name of the city on our brand because we wanted to put a flag in it and be like, no, 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 no. No matter what these other brands say, whether they're vertical or whatever, they're not as Kansas City as we are. Now, I will say there are some local brands that are also Kansas City and they bleed, Kansas City too. So I'm not going to shit on them by any means, but it's a healthy competition to try to be more local than the other local guys. You know what I mean? I mean, that competition definitely benefits everyone involved. Because if there was only one group saying, "Hey, I love KC the most," well, then they're not pushed to prove it. But if there's multiple groups saying they love KC the most, well, then all of us have to prove it. We got to put our money where our mouth is. So everyone involved benefits.
So you guys are in an interesting position right now with the explosion of exposure to Kansas City right now. The World Cup coming in, and the number of people and that are from not just other states but other countries. And for me, I look at things. We talk a lot about authenticity in the cannabis market a lot of times, and who's true to their roots and stuff. I saw a T-shirt the other day that said Kansas City World Cup, and it had the arch over the top of it. Clearly it's just a company from somewhere that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing or anything. They're like, oh, Missouri, Kansas City is in Missouri, like these must be the same.
Yep.
How are you guys experiencing the rush of people? Have you seen a significant change? And more so, is everybody coming to you with the idea that you are the Kansas City barbecue of weed because you're Kansas City cannabis? Are they like, this is the most authentic Kansas City, Missouri weed experience we can get by going to Kansas City Cannabis?
Man, I hope that's where they're landing. I hope that's what they feel with us. Because, I mean, honestly, that's what we feel. But, realistically, we've seen a slight increase in our average, but so much of purchasing, and this is worldwide consumerism at this point, so much of purchasing is based off of convenience. So I'm sure the dispensaries that are closer to downtown and closer to the Fan Fest and all that are getting a lot more of an uptick than us. But we still tried to lean into it. So like our Berry Road location is the first dispensary from the airport to Kansas City. So we tried to lean into it there. We put up some billboards with languages that were specifically from the countries that people were coming from that had fans here. We have a street team at FanFest, kind of backdoored our way into that because FIFA's not fucking with us at all. We've been doing a little bit of stuff to kind of put ourselves in the environment that everybody else is at rather than trying to expect them to come to us without any sort of reason to. We do lots of discount plans, bulk purchasing, things that people are traveling hopefully can relate to.
Open new doors to market movement at MJ Unpacked, coming to Kansas City, Missouri, October 14th and 15th. Uncover opportunities that don't exist in day-to-day markets, explore expert-led conference sessions, and build meaningful connections in the exhibit hall. And for the first time, celebrate Missouri's top brands at the MJU MoCan Cup Awards. Register now and get your pass for as little as $49 with early bird pricing. Plus, save an additional 20% with code GREENWAY20. Visit mjunpacked.com and we'll see you in Kansas City. I believe you guys were the first company in the state to utilize television ads.
If we weren't the first, we were in the top two. Us and Greenlight were going back and forth on that. I actually, if I'm giving every dog his due, I think Greenlight released a commercial a few days before ours went live. But it was on the same channel, just picked different spots. But yeah, man, those commercials are fun. We've done a few different commercials now. We actually got a World Cup soccer commercial going right now. We did a commercial where we just showed off our people. We've done a commercial that leans into ads a little bit, but yeah, we've messed with commercials quite a bit now. I think we've done 4.
That's awesome. What's the what kind of restrictions have they hit you with, and what's the hardest part about advertising a weed retail business on a television ad?
Television is actually less of a mystery than social media, to be honest, because social media will just, I mean, as you know, it's pretty common. They'll pop you for whatever, and they won't even give you a reason. Television, at least, they're telling you what you can't do ahead of time. Honestly, it's not too restrictive as long as we're staying in our legal market. We tried to branch over to Nebraska and Iowa, and we had some more restrictions there. But the biggest, funniest one that we ran into is that we couldn't use the word cannabis, except when we said the word Kansas City right in front of it, because that was our business name. I thought that was such an asinine stance, but, whatever. They let us do Kansas City Cannabis, so that was fine. We did run into one problem. I'm not going to say the business because I don't want them to come after us. But there's one iconic business with an iconic building in Kansas City that we kind of did a fadeaway at the end of one of our commercials. And they hit us up and they were like, hey, we're a nonprofit and a lot of our donors didn't like that. Can you please stop and we don't have to take it further than this? And I mean, 30 minutes, we were like, no problem. We had the commercial down. So I bring that up because it wasn't a restriction from the TV company or the station. It was a restriction from a separate business entirely. So we run into that a little bit. But most of the places we use, we filmed in the Crossroads. Obviously, all those brands are very pro cannabis, and they're cool with us being in their area. But yeah, we come into some random things. And to be honest, dude, the TV stations don't know. They know what's not allowed right now, but they don't know how their decision makers are going to respond the next time they bring something up. So it's kind of a new area to explore. We're working through with our advertising partners.
I don't know if they had it out in Kansas City, but I grew up in the St. Louis area and stuff like that. I always remember the old dirt cheap commercials, and so it would always be an old guy standing next to a giant chicken, man in a chicken suit, not a legitimate giant chicken. That would have been something different. And the actual business name was Dirt Cheap Cigarettes, Beer, and Liquor. And so in the commercial, it was because you can't say cigarettes on television after the 90s. So it would always be Dirt Cheap Beer and Liquor because they were putting the cheap over the cigarettes part. So whenever you first said we can only say cannabis whenever we're putting Kansas City in front of it because that's the name, that was the first thing I thought of. You guys just consistently over and over find find the right lane and the right way to do things. It seems like, whether it's the culture that you've created internally, whether it's promoting from within, whether it's as you bring new people in and starting them at the bottom, immediately putting them on the track for more education, to the way that you brand yourself and stay ingratiated and ingrained in the communities around you, to even the way that you advertise and the way that you guys reach out and touch the consumers in your area. It just this is going to sound kind of belligerent, I think, but have you guys? I know you said you made a $30,000 mistake. Have you guys made many mistakes along the way?
You know, it really depends on what we label as mistakes. We've made operational mistakes and we've had operational growth and skill set growth, but we've really always been good at letting our moral compass determine the direction that we go. There's been several times where we've ran into hard ass decisions, and I don't want to get into them because it's some employee privacy stuff, but we've ran into some hard ass decisions, and ultimately we end up landing on the right direction to go because we let the moral compass guide us rather than the dollars or the cents or what other people are going to think or what we should do in business. We take all that into account, but then we take it for what it is. And then we really go, okay, is this the right thing to do? Is this going to positively affect the most people? And dude, that's given us home run after home run, to be completely honest.
Not that I want you to give away the secret sauce or anything, but it seems like you guys have figured out the balance between being a good company and being good people.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it offline. Full disclosure, we've had in case we're able to use this, we've had a few technical difficulties today. We're blaming FIFA and the World Cup. But one of the things that we talked about was there are a lot of companies that are very good at companying, but that doesn't mean that they're good community, good people. Generally speaking, companies spend a lot of time making brands feel like people, and then brands spend a lot of time treating people like numbers. And you guys seem to have figured out the perfect mix of treating both the people inside the building and outside the building as people while being successful. And it seems like the biggest part of that success is hard work and diligence, but the recipe for why it keeps working is because of the approach to humanity and community that you guys have taken. Question mark.
That's exactly
I'm Ron
it.
Burgundy.
I'm Ron Bergen. No, yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. I don't personally, and a few other people here at KCC we've talked about before. One of my biggest professional fears is that whatever I do next after KCC, and hopefully I do this for 20 years, and I sail off into the horizon, having retired from KCC. But if that's not the reality that I end up living in, my biggest fear is, will I ever be able to find a company that allows leadership and direction to be dictated by the right things? Like essentially, the culture that got set here, dude. You've had jobs, I've had jobs. Everyone's had jobs where they go, man, that was a job, and I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. I don't ever want to go back to that. And so, I mean, being personal for a second, yeah, dude. My biggest fear is that if I can't be here forever, I won't ever find a company that treats people like people again. And honestly, I a can't be led by a leader that's like that, and B, I can't lead that way. So I essentially, in my own personal, realistic opinion, I become much more useless if I can't lead people morally. So, and I know a ton of the leaders here feel that way. And honestly, I think that also pays tribute to why KCC is so special. I mean, not to get on about KCC, man, but you know, I'm I'm a loose founder. I'm not one of the founders that brought in the money to make sure that we could get off the ground, and I wasn't one of the original 5 people that had the idea in the first place. I was pretty much the first employee, and the leadership that blossomed from just a group of friends finding people that they could work with, then turning that into something that was worthwhile for the other people we bring on. Dude, it's just been so special. And like I said, it's we have fought to protect this culture. Like we the only time we ever ask someone is when they've fallen off the culture or when they've started negatively affecting their teammates, because that's we can't let that fall off because we know how special it is. And honestly, you said something about hard decisions earlier. I wish more business owners and powerful decision makers would realize that, they like to pretend that leadership is making the hard decision, which it is a lot of the time, but they like to pretend that the hard decision is pro business. And it's like, no, man, that's the easy decision. You made the decision that makes more money and makes that money easier and made it to where you don't have to justify the decision you made because it's making more money. When realistically, the hard decision is making the decision that's right for the people and figuring out how to make the business still work and make money. And we've taken, as leaders at KCC, we've taken that on head first. And like I said, that moral compass has really done dividends to us. And the hard actions on the back end is, okay, we made the right decision. Now we need to make the company operations fit that right decision instead of going the opposite direction.
I've said for a long time, if you ever walk into a board meeting or even just a first day like introductory like meeting where they're getting ready to give you the whole spiel, and anyone there says we treat everybody here like family, get the fuck out of there, because the reality is families are dysfunctional. Families fight, families argue, families don't treat each other with professionalism. Families are supposed to be the place where you're safe to be 100% yourself, but also they're the people that make you the craziest because they love you in your worst possible state. And while while it's great for us to have a welcoming environment and a welcome concentrated focus on making people the best version of themselves and treating them with kindness and humanity and things like that, it's a business, and a business can't allow for you to be harmful and negative and you can't walk up. I can walk up and punch my brother in the back of the head and be like, ha ha, look you, buddy. You should not do that at work. That's bad. That's a no-no. We're not going to do that here. And so the people that say our company is a family are the people that don't truly understand what either of those things mean, I think. Because the reality is a company should be a company, and it should be much more akin to a community. You don't walk out into Walmart parking lot and just start smoking folks in the face and being like, this is because you didn't return my Walkman in 1999. But you can do that at a family barbecue, maybe not your family barbecue. Maybe I need to go back to therapy is what I'm saying. But the reality is that community seems to be such a deeply entrenched focus for you and for KCC that it becomes a revolving door, a thematic component of, we treat people well, the people treat each other well, the people treat the consumers well, the consumers come back because they are treated well, and we continue to do business every day. And to your point, the hard decision doesn't become what makes us an extra dollar an hour. It becomes what makes us more valuable to the people that are here investing their time and investing their energy, and to the community that's supporting us. And I try very hard not to play favorites, but I really appreciate the approach that you personally have taken to both leadership and training, and just being uh, a solid person, a solid human, because the more people we have in leadership positions in this industry that treat their business and their employees and their consumers the same way that the CEO of KCC is treating the people that he interacts with. Number one, destigmatization is mostly gone away. I say all the time, it's hard to say that we're heavily stigmatized whenever Willie Nelson and Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg are doing Super Bowl commercials with a bunch of in jokes about your lighter.
Yep, exactly.
But there's a difference between destigmatization and normalization. And normalization is people not looking at you funny whenever you spark up a joint or drink a cannabis seltzer at a barbecue while they're all sitting around drinking Michelob and Bud Light. That's normalization. And the way we get to
Yeah,
normalization
exactly.
is by people understanding that the people that are doing this and the people that work in these industries and the people that are supporting and frequenting these locations are just the same people that are sitting across from them at the PTA meeting or working with them at the hospital or wherever they happen to be. And Schedule 3 is going to be great for that. But the
Hmm.
biggest thing that's going to help it is internal leadership in companies that's focused on educating their people, building their staff, and building their community. And I just can't be more grateful for companies like yours and people like you existing in an industry that is often so negatively talked about. We talk all the times about the negative sides of cannabis, and you hear about the rule breakers, and you hear about the problems with people never getting paid, and companies doing business
Yep,
in bad and shady and scandalous ways. That happens everywhere. Nobody talks about
absolutely.
investment banking in the way that they talk about cannabis businesses, but we got Bernie Madoff, we got all these people that are legitimately in jail for financial crimes and have defrauded
Hmm.
billions of dollars from families, and you're just out here hooking people up with the opportunity to be normal and live good lives and be ingrained in their community, while smoking weed, and that's a beautiful thing.
I appreciate it, man. Honestly, it's every time I get the opportunity to talk about KCC and talk about our culture and talk about what we're trying to do, it's important to. I don't know. It's hard to strike a balance between. I don't know. I never want to come off like we're claiming we're doing it better business wise. I do think we're doing it better people wise, and I think that's paid dividends to the business. Um, but no, I really appreciate you saying those things because I do think cannabis has the opportunity to be an outlier when it comes to business. And I think a lot of cannabis businesses are doing the right things, and it doesn't get talked about enough. Because, like you said, everyone knows the bad actors, and everyone is able to point to the bad actors, and everyone has a friend that's probably worked for one of them and didn't like it. But you don't necessarily hear about the good actors because the people there are happy. They don't have any complaints. They don't have to. They don't have to go out and tell the world, "Hey, these people are pulling the wool over your eyes." Plus, we don't want to put that pressure on anybody anyway. But yeah, man, it's a culture. I think is the tip. It's more than just a talking point. A lot of companies talk about culture, but if you actually do it right, the rest of operations will follow suit. Especially if you're attaching the success of the company to the success of the individual. As soon as that connection happens, like if I could give anyone business advice, it's exactly that. Connect the success of your business to the success of your employees, and your employees will absolutely take care of your business because they're taking care of themselves at that point. They're taking care of other people that feel the same way as them and other people that they want to take care of. And also to send a point home, leadership is beyond important, and that's every facet of leadership from a bud tender who's a natural leader all the way up to my position. And if you take it half-heartedly, not only is your business affected, but everyone can tell. So if it's just a talking point, people can tell. if it's something your company truly lives by, people can also tell.
Missouri, the fog has officially rolled in. I cannot believe how excited I am about this. Brandon, too. Super fog just touched down in the Show Me State, and it's bringing the heat. All in one disposable Hefes, now in 1 and 2 gram, so you can choose your adventure your way. Smoother hits, bigger flavor, less hassle. And we're not done. This June, Fatty's pre-rolls are landing statewide, so mark it down. Find Super Fog at the Green Lights in Southeast Missouri, the Heights in Maryland Heights, all propers, and a bunch more other dispensaries coming soon across Missouri. The fog is here. Go get it.
I'd like to shift the focus, but keep it within the same parameters for the last little bit of the conversation.
Sure.
You guys at KCC seem to do a very good job of blending the cannabis culture. Now we've talked a lot about the business culture. You guys seem to do a good job of blending cannabis culture with education. And it seems like that's a place where a lot of times retail struggles, is in educating consumers. How do you approach consumer education, and what are the things that you would like to see patients, cannabis consumers, bud tenders, wholesale buyers? uh,
Cannabis culture, and then it all went
okay.
gone.
Uh, so you guys, we've talked about the business culture and how you've fostered and created this, blooming, for throw the pun in, but how you guys have created a culture for the business side. But it seems like you also do a really good job of blending cannabis culture and education on the consumer and retail side. And as somebody who, my opinion is that overall most retailers lack in the education area. There's a few that are exceptional. There's a lot that are below average, and there's some that are just dismal. They may have the coolest facility, they may have all the products you could ever want, and their sales staff might be great, but they there's no education there. How do you guys blend culture and consumerism with education? And as a second point to that, what do you wish that more consumers or more patients were learning in order to drive the industry forward?
That second part is a really specific and good question. First part, when it comes to cannabis culture and education getting blended, it all starts from the fact that we all legitimately love cannabis. I don't mean this derogatory at all, because I am what I'm about to say, but we're really a company of potheads and stoners and smelly hippies. So at the end of the day, we can relate to the person who's coming in who wants to learn more, because at one point we either wanted to learn more, or this is something we're already passionate about talking about. So it's nothing. None of our employees, it never feels like a forced conversation to talk about cannabis. It's just a natural part of it. But one thing that we do is we have a robust training program. So outside of the business operations, purely just education is like 2 days of our what used to be 5 days training. Now it's 3 days plus some in-store stuff. Another thing I like to drive home with people is, dude, talk to the other people in the dispensary. You'll learn more about weed talking about weed with other weed people than you will from a book, or you will from whatever. So education, A, comes naturally. B, we lean into knowing the product. A big thing that we like to ask customers is how they want to feel. What feeling are you trying to get from the products you're buying today, especially if they don't know necessarily what to go towards. And so we kind of have a script to walk newbies through it. But for cannabis culture, man, it's natural. It's natural for us. We existed before the market existed. We'll continue existing through the market. Um, we like to collaborate with other people that align with our passion for cannabis. And honestly, to call a spade, we give extra points to people that were involved in the black market or involved in cannabis outside of legalization. Because at the end of the day, I actually just gave this talking point to someone the other day, but none of this would exist if it weren't for passionate potheads who kept it going in the underground. None of this would exist. Our lives wouldn't have changed. We wouldn't be in the industry we loved. I'd still be selling weed at my house instead of selling my weed at the stores. So, like, being able to speak to that and still stay involved with that side of the culture, I think is something that is underrepresented in the cannabis industry. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Bouffe du Jour on LinkedIn, but they did a little article the other day, and dude, I busted up. It was talking about how many cannabis entrepreneurs try to use the street cred model of getting into the industry, but without having actually been involved in anything previous to legalization. And they're good people. They're good people. They're just businessmen first. And everyone at KCC in the leadership side, we were cannabis people first, who then were like, awesome, here's the opportunity to get into business in cannabis. And then the second part of your question.
I thought you were going to talk about the article where I almost said his name, who wrote it, where they said cannabis CEO talks about how he doesn't like weed and and how great his vapes are. And I was like, listen, we've had a really good conversation. Please don't put me on blast like that right now.
For real, yeah.
Dude, like
he actually.
I always try and be pretty transparent, but I felt personally victimized by that article.
Dude, I actually know the interview, or I think I know. I think I know the exact person in interview that article was referencing, without it referencing exactly who it was, and it made me laugh even more because it was a spot on interpretation of that interview. But yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't looking at Bouffe du Jour, look at it. It'll be a mirror for a lot of people. It's a mirror for me sometimes. But now, the second part of your original question, what do I wish more cannabis consumers knew, or what was driving the market? I know this is kind of redundant, but it is true, man. Terpenes matter. I wish the DCR would understand that. Like, instead of making us list 60 terpenes that are, let us at least list the ones that are going to be able to pop up and be noticed. Because terpenes, they'll dictate your high. A lot of people are smoking for the taste at this point. So if you give me a terpene list, I can at least know what I'm looking for. Holding back the label because they can't fit 60 terpenes, 45 of which don't matter, 55 of which don't matter too much, is ridiculous to me, because terpenes matter in a huge way. I mean, ask anyone that's ever smoked a disty vape versus smoking a live resin vape. Like, the high is different. If you smoke a disty vape, you get a little bit of a racy high. You kind of, won't call it energized, but you're not going a different direction based off the strain from a disty vape. Disty vapes have their place, but terpenes matter, and I wish more people understood that. Because, like, dude, I could tell someone what strains they're gonna like if they know what terpenes they like. But if they're just telling me how they like to feel, which, don't get me wrong, that's how we lead into conversations a lot of times, because people don't know how to have the terpene conversation. But if they tell me just how they feel, it includes a lot of guesswork. But if you say, I liked this strain and this is the terpene profile, dope. I can find another terpene profile like that will give you a similar effect. So, sorry to get energized there, but terpenes matter, man, and I wish more people understood that.
No, you're preaching to the choir, man. I've said for a long time, because there's two realities that exist in cannabis at the same time. They exist in every industry, but especially in new industries, you have duality. And the duality is that on the one hand, you have an uneducated consumer base largely. But, I'm not talking to the guy that's been smoking, every month or every week since 1964. I'm talking about the people that have just gone to the dispensary for the first time within the last year in every single market. I'm talking about my hypothetical dad that I may have mentioned earlier that hypothetically may have grown weed in the 70s, type of shit. You know, I'm talking about him who hasn't smoked in 20, 30 years going in for the first time, because it's not the same thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
so and so whenever, that's the duality of the customer side. The duality of the business side is that just like wine, just like alcohol, just like tobacco, you're going to have different levels of interest from people that are participating, and some of it's just going to be assimilated knowledge.
Yep.
Whenever we talk about how bourbon culture, you used to be able to buy a bottle of Four Roses or a bottle of Blanton's for $40. Now it's going for $200.
Yep.
But nobody thinks about cannabis in the same way that they think about high-end alcohol a lot of times, whether it's
Yep.
from a business standpoint or a consumer standpoint. We all know that you can get way more and turn a higher profit from a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle than you can from a bottle of 180 proof Russian vodka or whatever that somebody took two potatoes and
Mashed
smashed
potatoes,
them and smashed them together. Prison wine is pretty high in alcohol concentration. Nobody's lining up to buy that.
Yep.
And so the thing becomes, at what point is cannabis going to catch up to the rest of industry and say we're driving ourselves to a point where there's going to be stagnation? Because if all you're ever doing is chasing THC percentage, if all you're doing is purchasing based on THC percentage from a wholesale buyer perspective, and if all you're presenting to customers is THC percentage as the way to put a premium price on things, then at some point everybody's going to be at the same THC percentage or within a few of each other, and then you can no longer differentiate, and you still have an uneducated consumer base. And so we have to start making decisions as an industry where our wholesale buyers are buying because it's good, not because of the THC percentage, despite what the average consumer is dictating right now. But that's where the role of retail education comes in, right? Is you have to educate the consumer so that they know what to buy and know what quality really is as you progress further. Otherwise, everybody's going to be exactly the same. And if it was only about THC percentage, everybody would just smoke distillate and 40% gorilla thunderfuck or some shit like that, and it would have no terpenes, it would have no cannabinoids, it would just be THC and dry hay. And everybody would be fine with it, right? But that's not the reality. It's just, the reality is that most consumers don't know what they're asking for. The reality is that even people in the cannabis industry, up until, I still have this argument with people, but up until 2 or 3 years ago, saying indica or sativa was the holy grail of how to differentiate. But the reality is, for 40 years, it's all been hybrids. And and so we as a industry are still propagating a lot of the things that are putting glass ceilings on what we can do as an industry, because we're perpetuating the stereotypes, not of Cheech and Chong and stuff like that, but of what quality is. And how do you educate a consumer about quality if you're telling your buyer that you can only buy things that are 27% THC and higher? Well, that makes you miss out on all my favorite strains and cultivars,
Yeah, dude, my favorite. So I won't say it's my favorite strain all the way around, but one of the most surprising smoke sessions I've ever had was on a 19% cereal milk. And honestly, for cereal milk, now 19% is probably still pretty high. But that 19% cereal milk was tasty, tasty, tasty. And you could definitely, it was a unique high. I remember being blown away by the uniqueness of the high. And what people don't understand, what I really think they need to get through to the consumers is like, okay, yes, high THC has its place, and that's the benchmark of what people are looking for right now. But this is the caveat of that. The higher the THC goes, the lower everything else is. So if you talk to any experienced cannabis user, you've heard the words like terp chasers and terp experts and stuff like that. And people are trying to learn into the terp side of things. But like, if I have a 40% strain, that's by volume. That means that there's only 60% left for everything else in the plant, including plant matter. So like, you're really negating the uniqueness of everything that you can get out of a plant when you're focusing on THC percentage. In fact, I bet most people would be extremely happy with a 24% strain, and they would be just as stoned. They would be just as relaxed, just as whatever they're looking for, as long as they got the right terp profile. So like, if people could understand that, it'd be great. What KCC does, one of the things we do, you come in and ask for this. We're going to present you with what you asked for, no matter what, because that is what you asked for. We're not gonna go against what you're requesting, but we're also going to bring this other option up. Now, the other option could be, if somebody's looking for gummies, it might just be flavor or whatever. But when it comes to flower, hey, I want a 35% or plus. Okay, no problem. Here's this. Here is a 31%er with 2.5% more terps than this one. And here's a 26%er that has 4.5% more terps. Here's why it matters. Some people tell us to fuck off. They want the high percentage. Cool, no problem. But other people will be like, okay, I now understand why that matters. Let me give that a go. And especially with our bulk deals, we try to coach the bud tenders to be like, okay, they're coming in for a bulk deal. If they told you they want all the highest THC percentages, cool. Be like, here's 6 of those. But just like a bartender that would come up and be like, hey, I know you really liked this drink last time. Try this drink. You'll love it. Same concept. Hey, for these last 2 eighths, they're not the highest THC we have, but they're the highest terps we've got. I think you'd really enjoy these. And that's how you win people over. It's a slow battle, and it's a battle that oftentimes leads to debate. But it's an important battle if you're really trying to present people with the highest quality possible.
I mean, it is a slow battle to some extent, but there's also, as we talk about dichotomy and stuff like that, there's also the thing that it doesn't have to be a slow battle. If everybody in one state decided tomorrow that we're going to switch our buying patterns from highest THC percentage to highest cannabinoid or terpene percentage, and just unilaterally every wholesale buyer in the state said, this is our new metric, we're going to do it this way, even if it was just the wholesale buyer for 1 or 2 large chains, that would dictate a huge change in how cultivators are growing and stuff overnight. And then it kind of goes back to there are certain states right now which have THC percentage limits. There are, without getting into all the weeds of rescheduling and things like that, the reality is that, to your point of, if you're only chasing THC percentage, there's always going to be a threshold where it's just not possible to ever produce a plant with more than that. And so if you're the first person to ever hit that threshold, let's say theoretically it's 50%. That sounds insane, but let's say that's what it is. So somebody figures out how to legitimately make a plant that is 50% THC. Okay, you did it. You may be there first. You may be a year or 2 or 3 before everybody else, but eventually everybody's going to catch up to that. And then you have a product that there's no differentiation in the market, and you still have a consumer base that doesn't understand why 50% of this is any different than 50% of anything else. And it's because there probably isn't any, because you're not going to have that. But if you have a bunch of different cultivars that are 15%, that's so much room for one of my favorite my very favorite cultivar is called Strawberry Banana Grape. It is fruity. It's not a high THC percentage. It also has a tendency to have some weird things with the genetics where, you know, you may get some weird shaped buds or colas or whatever. And so it's not grown commercially very often. But that to me is the best weed in existence. The highest I've ever seen it test at, not that I was actively testing every batch that I got or anything, but the highest I've ever seen it test at was like 19-20%. So I'm pretty sure that it was consistently like 13 to 15%, and it was fantastic. It was my favorite. If I could put it in a little bottle and take it with me everywhere, I would. And I definitely
bottle
didn't
that
do
magic
that.
right there.
I definitely didn't do that and travel to other states, because that would be wrong. And there's interstate trafficking laws that prevent that.
Did you ever have Black Lime Reserve by Flora?
Black
It was medical
lime?
only market. Yeah, Black Lime Reserve.
No.
Dude, they only had it for a short time. If I could convince anyone in the Missouri market to redo anything, I would try to convince Mark and Flora to bring Black Lime Reserve back, man. It's not a crazy yielder, but it was. So, you know, I'm going to say the strain names wrong. I tell people all the time. I learned from books. I didn't learn from people, so I might mispronounce things. But limonene, whatever. It has a very specific lemon taste to it. Lemon.
Mm-hmm.
To make that terpene taste like a lime, there has to be other terpene interactions that are happening. But Black Lime Reserve tasted legitimately and identifiably like a lime, not like a lemon, like a lime, which was so unique to me. But the really interesting part, and I don't know enough about this to be dangerous. I wish I did. But you would smoke it, feel zero high, feel zero intoxicating effect for the first like 15 minutes. And then suddenly it hit you like a wall. And it was very heavy body high. It was very mellowing high. But the mix of the taste and that delayed effect has made it one of the most unique strains that I've ever interacted with. And I wish strains like that were popularized.
I love things
like
that.
Yeah, dude, if we get Black Lime Reserve back,
I tell people all the time, if my joint came with a little umbrella, you'd know exactly what my profile tastes were like, because I want some fruity, like I want Bahama Mama, like I want to feel like I'm at Applebee's at happy hour, you know, like.
Dude, I'm the same way. If it tastes like a fruit salad and smells like a bouquet of flowers, that's the strain I'm looking for.
That's the best. That's exactly what we want. You know, I talked to Matt LeBrier from Proper, like, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And they were big vertical and stuff here in the state. But one of the things that Matt talked about was their ability in being vertical to say, okay, especially in our own stores, our premium cultivars are whatever we say they are, and whatever we like, not necessarily the things with the highest THC percentage. And so it's one of those unique things where being a vertical, especially in this market, is kind of, you have the ability to do things that other places don't. You know, as an independent retailer, you only have the ability to work within certain margins, you know, because you guys have to do all these things. But I love the approach that you guys take to education and bridging the gap between what a lot of people view as common knowledge when it comes to cannabis, and also soft hands. You know, you're not, I don't want to use the phrase kid gloves whenever we're talking about weed and stuff, but the reality is the average consumer now is not the average consumer from even 2020, 2021. The average consumer from 2021 is not the average consumer from 2015 or 2012. We're very quickly, and it can be seen in how much pre-rolls have gone up, and the push of edibles and vapes and stuff. We're rapidly becoming a regular consumer industry
Yep.
where your target demographic isn't someone who knows everything about weed and they're just getting a medical card to get a medical card so that they can purchase weed legally or possess it legally. It's people that have not consumed before or in a long time. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't consumed since they were in high school. The two fastest growing demographics in cannabis right now are ages 20 to 21, and it's people that are getting their first opportunity to purchase legal cannabis, and people between the ages of 30 and 44.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people who are recapturing that experience, and now that it's legal in their state, or in their market, or they're traveling to a new state, they're doing something that they haven't done on a regular basis either ever or in 2 decades. And
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah.
the vast majority of cannabis consumers are going to aim towards ease of access, and whatever that form. That's why vape sales and pre-rolls and things like that have become such hot commodities in a market that has always been led flower first, and flower was always the backbone of it.
Yep.
Those people still need the education to go along with it, because even though they come in, they say, hey, I just want a package of pre-rolls, they're getting a different experience every time, because they're just buying on price point or name brand or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't understand what they're buying. And so if you educate people, and you to your point, you talk about terpenes, you talk about cannabinoids, then when they come back, they're like, hey, I had this last time. The guy told me it was, very mercy and forward, tasted like a mango exploded in my mouth. It was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I'd love to have that again. Or somebody comes in and they're like, I had this stuff and it tasted like pine sol, and for whatever reason, like it was terrible, but it reminded me of green sprees, and I just got the best body high I've ever had in my life. That's what we need to be. That's what we need to be talking to consumers and patients about, and you guys do a great job of that. Here's more butter for your bread today. I it So much of this industry starts with leadership, and I think that the way you've approached your people, the plant, and your community can not be undervalued in how that translates to the experiences of the consumers and patients and employees and business partners and everything else. And I've taken up so much of your time today, and I've talked so much, but I just need, before we end, to tell you how much I appreciate you and the approach that you've taken to business, and the overall ethos that you've created within the cannabis industry for your people and your partners.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's important work. And I don't remember if I said this earlier, if we said it offline, but the cannabis industry has the opportunity to be very fulfilling for the people running it and for the people attached to it. And if you look back, I don't know, I've always felt very drawn to the counterculture of cannabis, because I feel like the more ostracized someone is, or an industry is, or whatever, the more they've I don't know. I think we talked about authenticity offline, but um, the more they've had to deal with that, the more it brings out their authentic self, and I'm really attracted to that. So then, being able to do that as a leader in this industry and find fulfillment through positively affecting so many people, I think is what cannabis has opened the door to professionally. Plus, to be honest, like you said it earlier, every time I tell somebody I work for Kansas City Cannabis, I have to go through this, and they're not attached to cannabis, they're not interested in cannabis at all. I have to go through this semi justification of why cannabis matters and why it's a legitimate industry, and you have to go through all that. So I don't know. I guess I appreciate KCC and myself being seen for what we're really trying to do. So I appreciate you too, man. I appreciate that.
Forrest Palmer, CEO, the man, the myth, the mustache. Thank you so much for your time today. I had a great time. I feel like I've learned so much, and I just can't wait until we do this again, because there's a lot of times I feel like I left something on the table for next time. Man, there's a lot that we didn't even get into. We had second and third course lined up and ready to go, and we'll get there. We'll get there next time.
Oh yeah. No, I'm excited to do it again, man. Anytime.
Thanks for your time, man.
Yep. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Flower Pot NYC is America's leading brand design and packaging agency for cannabis and emerging brands. They're cannabis consumers themselves, so they design packaging that doesn't just look beautiful, it protects and showcases the integrity of the product inside. Over the next 3 months, they're offering $1,000 off your first order, plus $1,000 if you refer a brand that becomes a client. They'll even beat your current packaging invoice by 5%. Or walk away. There's some conditions that apply. I'll let them handle that. Family run, good people, great product. Flower Pot NYC. Grow with us.